I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers with this video because we're talking about abundance and we're going to be talking about it in a way that probably isn't talked about. I would like to think that the way it's taught online is coming from a place of good intention and it's all well-meaning. In any case, I'm going to share with you my perspective, which has helped me to, become abundant. And hopefully it's going to help solve some issues that you've been having with your own, pursuit of an abundant life that you're happy about. When I entered the YouTube algorithm of abundance and manifestation and stuff like this, probably 5 years ago, I was really excited with the whole concept of abundance and like instantly manifesting $1,000 and blah, blah, blah. And that is actually something that I did just last week. In 30 seconds, I literally made $1,000, but I need to explain what led to that moment, because it's all well and good to make a YouTube video saying I made $1,000 in 30 seconds, but like you need to actually understand the mechanism behind generating $1,000 in 30 seconds. And I'll get onto that shortly. But first, I just want to acknowledge the whole abundance industry, we'll call it, the manifestation industry. Because as far as I can tell, people that preach that you can become abundant and do a quantum leap overnight, it really, for the most part, appears as someone coming on YouTube or Instagram or whatever they're doing, and they start talking about abundance and how to be abundant. And in the moment that they're talking about it, they're not like abundant, like they don't have anything, but they're talking about it. And then it gets to a point where people start watching the videos and then they have a course on becoming abundant or whatever. And then they become abundant because they sold a course on how to become abundant. And I just don't really see that as a sustainable model. And so I kind of deviated from that route. And while I do, offer mentorship and stuff, I don't want to sell you on being abundant. You are an abundant person, and it's just a matter of whether or not you choose to recognize that. I'd love to hear what your experience has been, with that kind of whole abundance affirmation, blah, blah, blah. Like, leave a comment, let me know what's been your experience. Have you become abundant as a result of, watching and practicing what you've seen online? So I want to share a story from a time where I really didn't have two nuts to rub together, so to speak. And it was in 2020. I was staying in a hostel in the south of England, and I had about 50 euros to my name. And I was cleaning toilets in the hostel in exchange for my bed. And I had my guitar. So I had a guitar and I had a bed. And I was kind of at this point where I was like really uncertain as to what was next, because all of the attempts I had made to get a job and whatnot didn't work. And I got to this place where I was just at peace with, the worst case scenario for me was like, okay, I'm still in this hostel. I've got the bed and I have my guitar so I can go and busk on the street. And like, I know I can make like £5 a day and buy some food in Tesco. And I just kind of came to terms with that. And I was okay with that. Like, it wasn't an ideal scenario, but I was like, well, I can live with that until something better comes along. And after a couple of days of like kind of surrendering to that, I ended up getting a phone call. I was reached out to by somebody who had seen some of the videos that I was making at the time. And I was invited to basically fly to this person's place and help them with projects that they were working on. And just like that, I, manifested abundance, you could say. And, during that time, I had kind of been visualizing, a life of freedom and flexibility and creativity, and where things, came to me and whatever. And I think amidst that, I was like visualizing a Land Rover vehicle. And funnily enough, when I got there, like this person actually drove Land Rovers. And I was like, well, it's not my Land Rover, but I mean, I'm around a Land Rover. Maybe that means that I'm getting closer to my manifestation of a Land Rover. Long story short, that opportunity, served its purpose, and I moved on from there. It got me to a really good place in terms of like my finances and whatnot. But ultimately, I was kind of, left struggling again after that, because you don't just like become abundant all of a sudden and then you're abundant forever. Like it's a constant work in progress. And so from that point on, I started to create, the life that I have now. And that took many years, and it took a lot of grafting and grinding, and it was quite painful, and there's so much uncertainty in it. And while I had that, glimpse of like the universe and manifestation working, I quickly realized that life's just not like that all the time. Like sometimes good stuff happens. And to this day, good stuff has happened to me all the time. And it's great. But there's a lot of challenges in between. And I think the pitfall that we fall into when we learn about abundance and manifestation and the law of attraction or whatever it might be is that we think that it's a place that we arrive and stay at. And in my experience, that's not the case. There's so much misinterpretation of like how you ought to act in the world in order to be abundant. Like one example is that you have to take a leap of faith. And I agree, you do have to take leaps of faith. And I'm going to share some leaps of faith that I've taken. But a leap of faith, like if there's like some abundance coach telling you, you got to take a leap of faith, you got to send me the $2,000 for my program, that might not be the best thing for you to do. And people, myself included, will get into this like kind of cycle where we're like, oh, but I won't be abundant if I don't show the universe that I am abundant. So I got to show the universe I'm abundant by spending $2,000 on this abundance course. And then you spend the $2,000 and then maybe nothing happens. Truth be told, you don't need to spend $2,000 on an abundance course to become abundant. You could, and you might become abundant, but you could also spend $2,000 on an abundance course and not become abundant because you didn't do anything different when you spent the $2,000. You thought that spending $2,000 on an abundance course would make you abundant, whereas the actual truth is you become abundant when you start to realize what you have within you. Like the value that you have within you can be shared with the outer world, and that is what will then give you abundance. So you are reciprocated based on what you give. And if you're in a situation right now where you're saying, oh, I don't have any skills, like I don't have any value to give, I believe you do. I think everybody does, especially the people that are watching these videos. Like you wouldn't be watching a video like this if you didn't have some value, some skill within you that you're wanting to share. In fact, I would say you watching this video is a sign that you are just about to start sharing it. And if you're having issues with that, I've got a confidence meditation. It's in the description. It's free. And that will help you just tap into and tune into the value that you have. And this is stuff that I say to myself all the time. Like sometimes I'll be nervous about a client that I'm meeting with or a project that I'm working on. And I realize that that's actually just me being afraid rather than excited. Afraid of what might go wrong rather than excited for the possibility of what amazing things could happen. So when I find myself in that space, I'll say, I'm excited for the value that I'm about to bring to this person, to their business. I'm excited for how this is going to unfold for the highest good. Rather than saying, oh, I'm nervous because what if I fuck it up? Well, you might fuck it up, but it might end up going amazing. And that outcome isn't really within your control, but what is in your control is your state going into that scenario. And if you can, ground down and find that nice vibration of peace and then go into the situation, it's a lot more likely that it's going to be, a favorable outcome in your ego's opinion. Like all outcomes they are what they are. There's always opportunities to learn. Anyway, moving on. You can't just give someone $2,000 and then hope to get $10,000 back. You need to give someone $2,000 if you want to go down that path. Like you don't have to. Like honestly, if you watch like some of my videos, if you just watch them and follow the steps that I put out in the videos, you could make lots of money. If you actually take the action and follow the steps, you don't have to pay anybody any money to do that. There's tons of great free resources online that will help you to, create value in the world and then receive that back in the form of money or opportunities or whatever. But the most important thing is taking an action. And it's not the action of spending $2,000 on the course. It's taking the action to, try and build a business, to create content, to, try and sell your services, whatever you might be doing. That's what's required. So you could pay me, like I'd offer one-on-one mentorship, but if you just pay me money and then don't do anything, you're not going to get any results. I can't make you abundant. You have to realize you are abundant and then tap into that abundance within you and then share that with the outside world, and then it will be reflected back to you. So it's not like a switch that you have to switch on, and then it just starts flowing. You gradually tap into what's already within you, and then you find ways to multiply that, by sharing it with people. And that's how you leverage the value that you have to give. And so much of that is just like, it's a practical thing. Like, I like to talk about practical spirituality, because so many of the spiritual concepts and stuff that you see on the internet are so difficult to follow and apply to the real world. And that was an issue I had for so many years on my journey. And that's kind of why I've decided to, make content around practical entrepreneurship and also, have that heart-centered approach. Because like, you could read Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, but like, that doesn't really translate to like practical tips to like running a business. Like, it's very difficult to take something so far this side of the spectrum and then bring it into this world. And that's not a knock on Patanjali, but it's just like, we're in this weird time where we're trying to be all one with the universe and stuff, but then we're ending up going so far that way that we have no money, and then we can't function. We're always in fight and flight, and it's just not helpful or conducive to you showing up in an abundant way to give your value, to have that value reciprocated to you. And so many people fall into the old trap of like, oh, well, easy for you to say, like, you have this and I have this situation, so I can't do that. And it's like, yeah, sure, maybe your situation sucks. I made this video, the brutal truth about life you don't want to hear, or something like that. And lots of people got upset about it, because they're like, oh, easy for you to say that you're a YouTube millionaire, you're privileged, you're this, like, say that to someone here in Iran. And it's like, well, first of all, like, I'm speaking to people like me, so of course everything I say is not going to be applicable to everybody in the world. But for the most part, like, my audience is based in the US or Europe. So it is applicable to more or less everybody. Like, if you have a phone, if you're watching this video, it means you've got either a phone, a computer, and the internet. So you can pretty much do anything that I've done, because that's all that's required to do what I've done. It's an internet connection and something to film things. And I imagine if you watch this far into the video, you're probably not fighting for your limitations anymore, or at least you're aware that you're fighting for your limitations, and you're going to see if there's another way that you can approach the challenges that are presented to you in life, so that you can shine your light and do the things you want to do. But the key here is to recognize the value that you have, right? And when you recognize the value, then you start to do things in the world. And when you start doing things in the world, other people recognize that value, and then they give you value. It could be in money, it could be in assets, it could be in opportunities. But you gotta have some sort of value to give. Otherwise, why would you get anything? Like, we're all, sharing here. But if you're not sharing the value within you, then it's not gonna balance out. And so once you recognize the value, then you can start to really manifest things, because then you can think about things, and then you can be like, well, how could I potentially get that, or like do that thing? An example is, yesterday I was listening to a podcast by Craig Adams. He's a hiker, YouTube filmmaker, and he was talking about Iceland a lot. And I was in Iceland last year, and I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll go again this year. And so I got on my computer, sent an email to a company over there that I have a connection with, and I said, hey, I'm thinking of coming to Iceland. Can we do a partnership? They said, yeah, when are you thinking? And now I have more or less, aside from flights, expenses paid trip to Iceland. I didn't just manifest it by visualizing it. The reason I could do that is because I have a skill set as a content creator. I can make badass content that's valuable to companies. Companies then are like, oh, he can help us. Let's help him. That's how opportunities open up for you. If I didn't recognize the value that I have as a creative person, then, you wouldn't be watching this, because I wouldn't have a YouTube channel. And that's kind of how this works. Like, you got to acknowledge your value and say, maybe I have something to share. Maybe I have a business to create. And then you go and start taking steps toward doing that. And then people are like, oh, wow, you solved my problem. Thank you. Here's money. Earlier on, I said that I made $1,000 in 30 seconds. And that's true. I literally wrote an invoice it was actually for 904 euros. So maybe just over $1,000. And I wrote an invoice, sent to this company, and they paid me. And you might be wondering, well, how did you do that? Well, the reason is because about a year ago, I helped this company with some creative consulting. And as a result of that, we agreed that if I helped them sell things, they would pay me a percentage of that. And I helped them sell $100,000 worth of their product. And they agreed to pay me 1% of that. Now, I haven't spoken to them in like 6 months. And I was sitting on my kitchen table and I thought, oh, I forgot about that agreement. Let me check how much money they owe me. And it was $1,000 and whatever dollars. So I just said, hey, here's an invoice. And then they paid me. But it's because I created a huge amount of value for them. And then that was just passively accruing over the last while. So that's an example of how you can, instantly manifest something without having to do anything. It's by creating and offering value. And as you progress along your journey, you will get to learn different ways to leverage your skills so that you don't have to put in time, because you can trade your time for money, but there's limitations to that because you've only got 24 hours in a day. So that's kind of an example of how you can instantly manifest large amounts of money, but it's going to be based on the value that you've previously offered. It's not like you just get stuff because you sat down and visualized it for 10 minutes. You need to actually give something in order to get something. And so, spending money on things to show the universe that you're worthy of abundance is fine, but don't be doing it just to show the universe you're worthy of abundance. Do it because you want the thing, or because you want to support the person, or you want to support yourself. Like, I spend money on, burritos because I love burritos. It makes me so happy when I'm eating that, like, guac and and the medium salsa that I like to get, or the sauna. Like, usually I get a sauna and a burrito, and that costs like 24, 25 euros. But man, it's such a good investment in myself. Like, I feel so good after it. I have so much peace of mind. I get like inspired. I get to meet people. I get to relax and chill. And it's just like, to me, like that's like really nourishing. And by spending that money, I support those businesses. I support my mind and body. And then, I can come up and tell you about the time I got a burrito, and this video is going to generate me some abundance. But like, it's not rocket science. It's not like this woo-woo magic stuff. It's quite simple. You acknowledge what's within you. You find a way to share it, and then it comes back, usually in multiples of what you gave out. I just don't really resonate with that whole, oh, you got to invest. Like, if you don't want to invest in my program, then you've got resistance and you need to break through the resistance. I find it difficult to take that seriously because there's a conflict of interest. It's like, okay, me investing in myself is like investing in you, which is fine, but like, I'd rather do that from a place of like, oh no, I'm just really excited to work with you. Like, I've spent money on different mentors and courses in the past, and I did it at the time when I was like, man, this person has really given me a lot of value over the last like year or 2 years or whatever, how long I've been watching them. And I really want to get a deeper dive into their work and their mindset behind stuff. And then like, they don't try to sell me anything. Like, maybe they mention it, but they're not trying to sell me things. They're not trying to pressure me. They're not trying to be like, oh, well, what's stopping you from buying it now? It's like, when that happens, I'm just like, I'd feel kind of icky. And I'm sure plenty of people would say, David, you're lacking in abundance right now. Like, you're in a scarcity mindset. But I don't really care. So this isn't the video that you wanted to watch about abundance, but it's the one that I made. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some value out of it. Check out this video next. It's about how the law of attraction ruined my life. Don't worry, it's not a negative video. It's, as always, positive, inspiring, uplifting, because that's what we're doing here on this channel. Have a great one.